I'm wondering if you might be able to cut this so the two of you can share.
Half and half. Like that?
Soon it's cut right in the middle, because then you can share and both be happy.
Each of us get our equal share. Yeah, it's not equal, it's not fair for one of the people. Fine.
Happy Easter! Today, over 2 billion Christians from around the world will gather together to celebrate the greatest event in history, the resurrection of Jesus. Or, as I like to say every single year at Easter, if someone can predict their own death and resurrection and pull it off, we just go with whatever he says. And that's why Easter is so important and why we celebrate it. Have you ever said, "It's not fair"? If you're a parent, I bet you've heard this from your kids. For example, if I gave one of my kids a bag of Reese's Easter eggs and the other two I just gave one egg, what will my 2 one-egg kids say? That's not fair. It's not just kids that feel this way. I want my life to be fair. When I was in college, I got into a lot of trouble, to the point where I should have been arrested more times than I can count. Well, there was this one night I was out with a bunch of friends and we were at this popular dance club. And I was getting my groove on in the middle of the dance floor, and the dance floor was packed, could hardly move. And while I was getting my groove on, I accidentally bumped into this woman and it spilled her drink, and I felt bad, so I offered to buy her another one, and she just laughed, no big deal, and that was the end of our conversation. Little did I know, her boyfriend was watching this the entire time, and he thought I was trying to pick up his girlfriend, so he came out and he punched me when I wasn't looking. Well, I did what any calm person would do. I went after him, but the bouncer stepped in and broke it up. Lucky for him. I mean, you don't want to be on the receiving end of any of these. Well, the cops were there, and they ended up arresting me and letting him walk. He went after me, he hit me, I didn't even get a chance to do anything, yet I get arrested and I spend the night in jail and he goes free. You know what I kept thinking from my jail cell that entire night? That's not fair. We all want life to be fair. At least we think we do. Today, I want to look at a part from the Easter story where God wasn't fair, and that was actually a good thing for us. A little background. Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, has just sentenced Jesus to death by crucifixion. Here's how Luke, who interviewed a bunch of people who were there, records it. 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified him there along with the other criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. So where Jesus was crucified, there were 3 crosses, just like you see behind me here. There was a criminal crucified on his left, one on his right, and then Jesus was in the middle of the 2. A crucifixion was the most painful and humiliating form of death. Before the crucifixion, the person was lashed 39 times with a whip that had these hooks in them that would dig into the skin of the person, and they would just rip it off. And if they survived that, they would have these 7-inch nails driven through the wrists and ankles, and then they would sit there for hours trying to breathe. And because of how they were stretched out, eventually they would suffocate to death. And only the worst criminals were crucified. That's how Jesus was crucified. And as he was on the cross, looking out at everyone cheering for his impending death, he prayed this prayer: "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." As we think about what Jesus is experiencing, and he did nothing wrong, and this is what he prays, I mean, it's just absolutely stunning when you think about it. I wouldn't have prayed that. I would have prayed my own version of, "God, give them exactly what they deserve." The 2 criminals crucified on each side of Jesus, well, they hear Jesus pray this. And look at how they respond. One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. Don't you fear God? Since you are under the same sentence, we are punished justly, for we're getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong. And then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. So the second criminal says, hey, we're getting what we deserve, which to be crucified means they had done a lot. I don't know about you, but I like it when people get what they deserve. We even have a whole lot of phrases around this idea. You got what was coming to you. You made your bed, so sleep in it. What goes around comes around. I can't count the number of times I've been driving on the highway and I'm in the fast lane, because what other lane is there but the fast lane? And there's a car ahead of me and there's a car behind me who wants to get around me. And so the car goes out, tries to pass me and then cut in front of me. But what does God lead me to do? Speed up and get real close to the car ahead of me so the other guy can't get in. And then I act like I don't know what I'm doing. Now, do you know why I do that? Because that car doesn't deserve to be in front of me. One time, this guy tried to do that, and I did what I always do, and he sped away, frustrated at me. Few miles later, he's pulled over for speeding, and I sped by him just laughing away. You deserved it. When it happens to me, I have an excuse. But when it happens to others, I like it. With the first criminal, he has this sense of entitlement. I mean, he's mocking Jesus, and he says to Jesus, save yourself and us while you're at it. But the second criminal responds in a completely different way. As I said earlier, only the worst criminals got crucified. So he's a really bad guy. But in that moment, he recognizes reality. Hey, we're getting what we deserve, but Jesus is innocent. Then he looks at Jesus and he humbly says, hey, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Now, I know many of us have heard this before, so we know how Jesus responds. But let's just set that aside for a minute. How would you expect Jesus to respond? Like, dude, you reap what you sow. Hey, you should have thought about that before you did. Hey, you do the crime, you do the time. There's another interesting side to this encounter. The second criminal is on his deathbed. I mean, there's nothing he could do to make amends for his sins. It's like he couldn't say, hey, if you let me live, I'll go to church. Hey, I'll clean up my act. I mean, he couldn't do anything. And yet Jesus looks at him and, knowing everything he's done, says, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. Jesus, that's not fair. And you know what? It's the greatest news you will ever hear. I want to pull out two important truths from this passage that matter to us today, that can actually change the very direction of your life. Here's the first one. God's not fair. And once again, that's actually a really good thing. God gives us better than fair. He gives us grace. Do you know what grace is? Grace is getting what we don't deserve. I want to read you these words that King David wrote about the unfairness of God. Now, understand, at one point, David had abused his power as king by taking another man's wife while her husband was away at battle, made her sleep with him. She gets pregnant, and he had her husband murdered to cover it up. David eventually comes clean to God with what he's done, and the penalty for his crimes were the death penalty. But God forgives him, and David pens these words about God. The Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love. He will not always accuse, nor will he harbor his anger forever. He does not treat us as our sins deserve, or repay us according to our iniquities. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his love for those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us. Anyone here ever live with a sense of guilt? Researchers have found that there's all different kinds of guilt we can experience. For example, there's actually a such thing called mom guilt. It's January and you drop your kids off for school and you're driving away and they aren't wearing a jacket. There's also dad guilt. This is that feeling of just not around enough, or I'm too critical with my kids. There's also spiritual guilt. This one lives in those deep places inside of us, the places that we don't like to go there. And we just think, God, you must be disappointed with me. I could never live up to what you want. I don't have what it takes. If we're honest, all of us have a sense of guilt. What if I told you that your guilt could be washed away? During the winter, I'm one of those guys that when my car is just covered with salt, I just leave it because I'm too cheap to get a car wash. Plus, I had a bad experience at a car wash where I was rear-ended in the middle of it, which is a whole nother story. One winter, my car was just painted in salt. And we're in the middle of a few nice days, and I'm pulling into the parking lot at the gym, and every single person had gotten their car washed but me. So, I pull in my spot with my salt mobile, and I can just feel people giving me that look of judgment. It's like, what's wrong with you, dude? It's like, it's $8. Well, I felt so embarrassed that later that day, I went to the car wash where an attendant asked me, he said, well, what kind do you want? I usually get the basic. It's basically just water and soap. So I asked him, what's the deluxe? Well, it's like, well, it uses this special soap. It even washes underneath your car. So it gets everything. So I got the deluxe. When I drove out of that car wash, it was like my car was reborn. Everything in me wanted to go back to the gym and just yell, hey, just so you know, I got the deluxe. Some of you feel as dirty as my car. Maybe it's because of something you did in your past. You hurt someone, or maybe a lot of someone's. Or you betrayed someone close to you and it wrecked your family. Or you struggle with an addiction of some kind. For others, it has something to do with what someone else did to you. And you know it wasn't your fault. And yet you're still carrying around this guilt and shame that you can't seem to shake. Listen, if that's you, it's okay to admit that's you. You need to know that God can power wash your sins away. That through the death and resurrection of Jesus, he's offering to you the deluxe package. And that's great news because none of us can clean ourselves up. I mean, you can live the best life ever, still not enough. We're not mistakers in need of correction. We're sinners in need of a Savior. We need more than just a second chance. We need a second birth. And that's what Jesus offered the second criminal, forgiveness and eternal life, not because he deserved it, quite the opposite. But because Jesus was offering what only he could. Because only Jesus lived a perfect life. Jesus did not deserve to die, but he died so that we could get what we don't deserve. I want you to think about your greatest failure or your greatest sin. And just think about this. As far as the east is from the west, God is taking those and removing them from you. Second truth I want you to take from this passage. Your sins can be forgiven. The story of the second criminal, it's incredible when you think about it. As I said earlier, he couldn't do anything to make up for what he had done. Yet, he humbly looked at Jesus. He says, hey, Jesus, would you remember me? And Jesus lovingly responded back, today, you will have eternal life. Not because he lived a good life, because he didn't, but because of his faith. He trusted that Jesus was going to come again in his kingdom. Here's what the Apostle Paul wrote to a church in Ephesus. And at one time, Paul hated Jesus' followers, and then he became one. Here's what he wrote. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It's the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. Paul writes about one of the biggest struggles many of us have with Christianity. It's this idea that we are made right with God through faith in what Jesus has done, not through what we have done. This goes against the grain of everything we believe and experience. You see, here's what we tend to believe. It's kind of this thought process. Good people deserve good things, so you should keep playing it out, so good people go to heaven. How many of you have ever said, I'm a good person? It's kind of look at all the good I've done or am doing. We even post all our good on social media. Guys, you want your lady to know your good deed for the day is watching or listening to this service with her. But let me ask you a question. And I bet you've never asked yourself this question. How do you know you're a good person? You might think, well, my mama told me. That's good. But she had to, okay? And let me add this other question. How good is good enough? The reality is We don't know. But we always give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, or we compare ourselves with someone who is not as good as us. Jesus, in his response to the second criminal, lets us know, and actually Paul validates it through not only his own story, but also through what he wrote. Good people don't go to heaven. And do you know why that is? Because God is perfect. So heaven is a perfect place. I mean, only perfect people go to heaven to be with God. Any perfect people here? So good people don't go to heaven, which is what we think. Forgiven people do. God giving us what we don't deserve, people do. Paul says, we're saved by faith. Faith just means to trust in. There must be this moment where we say to God, like the second criminal, I'm surrendering to you. I'm putting my trust in what Jesus has done for me, not what I have done for me. This is exactly what Mike did. Here's his story.
My name's Mike. I've been coming to the Ridge for about 13 years. So after college, when I started dating someone, we got engaged, and God wasn't a part of our relationship. We didn't even have a wedding in the church. We decided not to, since we weren't believers, to not even pretend like we were. It felt like a dream at the start, and shortly after, it was not. She started to pull away and distance herself from me. She just didn't love me anymore. I felt like this isn't happening to me. How could this happen to me? Like I was doing everything right. I was a good person. This can't be happening. Well, and then it's divorce, and I can't believe that that's going to be attached to my name the rest of my life. I was divorced. I'm wrecked. I'm lost. I'm broken. I'm trying to figure out what I did wrong. I'm trying to do things that make me a better person. I'm trying to be the best person I can be, and just lost at trying to do that. Everything changed when my brother and sister-in-law introduced me to Caitlin, and she was in town for that weekend, and her friend invited us to the Ridge. And so that was the first time I went to the Ridge. And within the first 5 minutes of service, they played a rock song that I was familiar with. They played a clip from King of Queens, and I love that show. And Mark made fun of the Packers. So something was clicking right off the bat. And then I listened to the message, and it was a Bible-based message that related to life, like that you could take away and you could use in your life. And ever since that moment, I remember leaving the Ridge that day, or maybe the next time I went, and like, do I believe in God? Yes or no? And if I do believe in God, I want to start acting like it. I kept coming back because right away I noticed that there is some path for me that I could follow. Like, I instantly knew this was what was missing in my life. This made me not feel like I failed, learning about Jesus and how he forgives you, and knowing that you can start new in him. It changed the way I thought about my past failures and my guilt for being divorced, and I didn't feel like I had to be perfect for someone to like me again, and it just gave me hope. So when I did start another relationship, I was lucky enough to find someone that was also a strong Christian. We just had a foundation in our relationship that was to follow Jesus. Having Jesus at the center allows me to, it taught me how to love my wife, and it it also allows her to know how to love me. Jesus is love in our marriage. Reflecting back on my past and being forgiven for it and being able to start over, and it just means the world to me. I might not know why things happen, but I'm proof that things work out and his plan is usually the best.
What I love about Mike's story is that he got to this point where he just felt lost. And I think many of us have either felt this way or we're feeling this way right now. And then he asked himself, do I believe in God? Well, yeah. Well, then I'm going to start acting like it. And then he started to search. And now he's following Jesus. And Jesus has changed his life. And Mike's story is this powerful story of what God can do when we allow him to give us what we don't deserve. I wonder if after the second criminal humbled himself before Jesus, one of the guards came to him and said, hey, we're going to allow you to live because Jesus is taking your place. What do you think he would have devoted his life to? I believe there wouldn't be a day he wouldn't devote his life to the innocent man who gave his life so he could have it. The second criminal story, that's all our stories. Because of our sin, none of us deserve to be made right with God. But through the death and resurrection of Jesus, he gives us all what we don't deserve: forgiveness and eternal life. Paul says it's by grace you have been saved. Maybe you're trying to fill your life with something. You want to feel good, so you've turned to sex or substances or success, but there's still an emptiness. There's still a void in your life. Or you keep telling yourself, I'm a good person, but deep down, you're uncertain and exhausted trying to be good enough. Or maybe you just think, I'm not good enough. I tell people I am, but I've messed up too much. There's no way God could forgive me. No way God could have a purpose for me. The one who made you loves you so much, he made a way. And the way is through Jesus, that whoever believes in him gets to say, that's not fair. That's grace. And that's the greatest news ever. It all starts by putting your faith, literally your trust, in what Jesus has done for you. And if you've never done that, let this be your moment where you say to God, God, I believe you sent Jesus to die for me. And he rose from the dead, and I'm going to put my faith in what he's done so I can be forgiven, so I can follow Jesus and experience freedom and purpose. If that's you, I want you to pray with me. Father, I know what my sins deserve, and I'm so grateful that you give me grace. You give me what I don't deserve. I do believe that you sent Jesus to die for my sins. And I believe that he rose from the dead. And I'm going to put my faith and trust in what he has done, not what I have done. Father, I thank you that you love me that much. And I thank you that I can find forgiveness, I can find life, and I can find eternal life in him. Father, I thank you for all those who've made that decision. I thank you for all those who've made the decision and before this time, and that we celebrate the greatest event ever. And that is the resurrection of your son, Jesus, at Easter. Thank you. Thank you for giving every single one of us what we don't deserve. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, if you decided to follow Jesus, we celebrate that. And we want to help you take the next step in your faith journey, because all of us have a next step and we all need help taking that next step. And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to text the word Jesus to this number, 414-509-0339. And for the next 14 days, we will text you some short videos or devotions that'll just help you take that next step. And so if that's you, I hope you'll text the word Jesus to that number below. And once again, happy Easter.